Hello, once more, welcome back to the channel. Making YouTube doing the 2025 Week 12 Big Ten predictions as we get on into it. 8 games on the schedule this week. Week 11 was a near perfect week. We went 6-1 back last week in Week 11. Back-to-back weeks with one incorrect pick for the month of November. And this week, Week 12, it's going to get a little tougher this week. A little tougher. Some games that are tough to predict. And I understand that's going to be a factor, which it will be, but it all starts tomorrow night with Oregon and Minnesota in Week 11. Here in Week 12, Minnesota headed to Oregon Friday night for a Big Ten clash in Eugene. Ducks coming off a 19-16 win against Iowa on the road. A game where the Ducks only scored one touchdown, but had 4 field goals and a safety. So it was a game of inches for the Ducks last week. That came down to the final minute. They kicked a field goal with 7 seconds left to take a 2-point lead. But the Ducks, they're back home this week against the Gophers. Minnesota having to go on the road. This is a tough thing for the Minnesota Gophers to do. The only team to win this year in Eugene, this year in the Big Ten, was Indiana, and Indiana is one of those teams this year that's unbeaten still. And so you can look at it and say this: the Ducks last year went unbeaten in the regular season. This year, you have 2 teams that are remaining unbeaten, but who knows? The Ducks, I think Oregon's going to be back to the regular selves this week, playing at home against Minnesota. Tomorrow night should be one of those games that should be easy to win. We all know it's hard to travel to the West Coast for teams from the Midwest, and it's going to be one of those tough games for Minnesota. I think Minnesota is going to be in it for the majority of the first half. But by the second half, I think Oregon's going to find a way to escape. At the end of the day, I think Oregon picks up a big home win as I think they rebound after coming off a 2-point win against Iowa on the road. I think the Ducks find a way to get the job done on Friday night. Moving on to Saturday. Now, at Wrigley Field, Northwestern. The first of 2 straight games at Wrigley Field. Northwestern taking on Michigan, the Wolverines. Michigan, Northwestern, 2 teams for rivalry, for a trophy game. One of the interesting games on the schedule this week. Michigan going to Northwestern. Northwestern, though, has not had the best numbers when it comes to playing games at Wrigley Field since the year 2010, when they first started playing games at Wrigley Field back in 2010. It's been a little bit interesting to see. Northwestern has only had 1 win, I believe. 1 win at Wrigley Field since 2010 season. And I think that's about 5 games worth. And overall, I think it's going to be another one of those games where Northwestern, it's going to be tough for them to win here at Wrigley Field because they're playing Michigan. Another team that could beat them at Wrigley Field. And I think that will happen this week. Michigan's still in line to make the Big Ten title game, even have a chance to make the college football playoff, but with a 2-loss team this year. For Michigan, I think it's all about how Michigan controls this game. For Northwestern, I think it depends on how they decide to play it. Will they play smart and play well, or will they play a little interesting this week? Last week, a 38-17 loss at USC. This week, I don't think they will lose by that much, but I do think that Michigan and Northwestern will be a close game. I do think Michigan gets the win, though, on the road, as I do think Northwestern gets another loss at Wrigley, again, at Wrigley Field. So give me the Wolverines on the road at Wrigley Field against the Wildcats on Saturday this week. Moving on. Moving on. We have Wisconsin. They travel to Bloomington to play the Hoosiers of Indiana, one of the top teams of the Big Ten. Indiana Hoosiers coming in at 9-0 still. Hoosiers and Wisconsin Badgers. Badgers and Hoosiers. Wisconsin, they upset Washington last week, 13-10, a game that Wisconsin got to win. It was their first Big Ten win of the year last week for Wisconsin. For Indiana, though, this is a game, they had a game of inches where they won 27-24. Multiple close games for top 10 teams in the Big Ten last week. Indiana and Oregon, of course, escaped. Washington, they couldn't escape. Madison is a team that's not in Big Ten. But overall, Wisconsin this week have traveled to Bloomington to play Indiana. This game, I think, is going to be one of the Big Ten games this week that gets a little bit ugly. One of the few games, I think, that gets ugly. The reason I think that is because I don't think Wisconsin has a chance in this one. I think Indiana's going to control the whole game. Maybe score 60, kind of like they did to Illinois. Maybe a little bit less than that, but I do think it's one of those games for Wisconsin where it gets ugly throughout the game. With that being said, I do think Indiana gets a big win and stays unbeaten this week. So give me the Hoosiers on Saturday. Moving on. Next one, we have Illinois taking on Maryland. Maryland, there we go. Decided to run away from me. Maryland, they travel to Champaign to play Illinois on Saturday in the Big Ten game. Illinois, they're coming off a bye week. And last time out, Illinois did something interesting. Back all the way in week 10, I predicted Illinois would win. They won 35-13 against Rutgers. Back in the other beginning of November when I picked up a win. Illinois, though, against Maryland. Maryland this year, kind of like Rutgers in a way. Maryland, they're a team in the Big Ten this year that has came on and started playing well this year. For Illinois, they're one of those teams that want to make it to the Big Ten championship, but I don't think they will. They have 3 losses already. Illinois is one of those teams that's going to compete with 3 losses, just like some other teams out there we'll talk about here shortly. But overall, looking at Illinois and Maryland, this is a game for Illinois at home against Maryland, where it's going to be about mistake-free football for Illinois the rest of the season. For Maryland, it's about making a bowl game and trying to get to a bowl game to where they need to be. At the end of the day, I think Illinois gets a big win at home, because Illinois is playing at home, and I think Maryland, it's going to be tough for them to go into Champaign to get a win. With that being said, I do think Illinois picks up a big win at home on Saturday. Moving on. This time around, Michigan State, the Spartans, in East Lansing, taking on rival Penn State for the Land Grant Trophy. Penn State and Michigan State, 2 teams in the Big Ten here, as we talk about them. Michigan State and Penn State, both teams near the bottom of the Big Ten, though, this year. Michigan State does have a few wins. Penn State hasn't won a Big Ten game at all. 3-6 overall. They almost got a win last week. Almost came away with it and beat Indiana, but that just wasn't to be. At the end of the day, for Penn State and Michigan State, this is a matchup where it's about bottom feeder teams in the Big Ten, 2 teams in the bottom in their conference. Michigan State also at the bottom, 2 teams at the bottom of the Big Ten, trying to get on to the win column to the Big Ten finally. Who's going to be the team that gets the win this week? Michigan State or Penn State? Overall, I think this could be a matchup that's going to be one of those games where it's going to come down to which team controls the game and which team can make the least amount of mistakes. Again, you need to make the least amount of mistakes if you're going to win a game in November, the Big Ten. At the end of the day, I think Michigan State playing at home, it's going to be a home crowd environment. I think that it favors them. I think the Spartans pull off a big win and beat Penn State on Saturday, as I think the Nittany Lions lose their 7th in a row. So give me Michigan State on Saturday. Moving on. Big Ten, LA, USC, the Trojans. Taking on the Hawkeyes, as an Iowa fan, I will say this much. 18-16 loss to Oregon last week, tough. But now it's West Coast trip for Iowa. Last year when Iowa went out to West Coast at the Rose Bowl against UCLA, it was a 20-17 final score. And I'll say this. Iowa can stick around with the West Coast teams. They did it last year against UCLA. Can they do it against USC this time around? The weather, I have heard, is not going to be very good. I've heard it's going to be raining. And that could favor Iowa in the game with the rain, potentially. But you never know. Weather can do crazy things. And looking at this matchup, Iowa and USC, last time they met, 2019 Holiday Bowl, Iowa got a big win. So, that was the last time these 2 teams met. This game is going to be about a game where it's going to be about trying to play hard. USC, we've seen what they can do. They beat Northwestern 38-17 last week. They can do it again. Their team, USC, still has a chance in the playoff rankings. Iowa can come in and upset them, though. Top 25 matchup, number 17 versus number 21. And looking at the matchup at the end of the day, I think USC is going to have in Iowa, it's going to be a tougher game. But I'll say this, if there's going to be a Big Ten team that wins on the road this weekend and says something about it, it's going to be Iowa. But at the end of the day, I don't think Iowa gets this one. I think USC finds a way to pull it off. So with that being said, I'm taking the Trojans at home against Iowa. As I do think Iowa gets their second straight loss, as I do think they fall to 20-6 or 20-7 in their last 27 November games. After losing last week, they're 20-6 since the year 2020. I think that record goes to 20-7. So, as I will be taking USC on Saturday. Moving on, Washington, the Huskies back home. After losing 13-10 in Madison, Wisconsin against the Badgers, they have the Purdue Boilermakers coming in, a game in the Big Ten. For Washington, it's a game they need to bounce back. They had a chance with 2 losses last week to still have a chance to make something happen. But it's about Purdue this time. You move on, you flip the script from Wisconsin's 13-10 loss on the road in Madison. You flip the script and you turn the page to Purdue, a team in the Big Ten that's not very well. Purdue near the bottom of the conference doesn't have a lot of wins. So it's going to be one of those games where you can take a look at it and say, Washington, Purdue. For Washington, it should be a cakewalk with Purdue. Purdue's not a very good team this year in the Big Ten Conference, like others out there. But for this week, I think it's Washington that gets the job done. Playing at home on Saturday night in primetime. Give me the Huskies at home Saturday night. Moving on to our final game of the day. Final game of the week. We have the Bruins, UCLA. They're traveling. They're coming to Columbus to play on the Buckeyes. The other team that's unbeaten still, just like the Hoosiers, the Buckeyes, the Bruins. And this one, I'll say this. UCLA has done it this year. After starting 0-3, UCLA has found a way to find wins. And you know what? By finding wins, they've done that. And with that being said, it's okay for UCLA. They're in a good position. They feel like this could be a game where I think UCLA, after showing up, after going 0-3 and winning games, upsetting Penn State, upsetting other teams in the year, I think UCLA this week has a chance to maybe upset another team in Ohio State. Unfortunately, I don't think it happens, though. I think UCLA though, comes into Columbus, and I think they put the Buckeyes on upset alert for a while. I think UCLA keeps it close going into the game, and even into the third quarter in this matchup. But at the end of the day, I think Ohio State finds a way to get the job done at home, under the lights, playing against UCLA. I think the crowds will be a little too loud late in the game, but I think through the first half and the first part of the third quarter, I think the crowd keeps. I think the crowd is loud, but I think UCLA stays in it. At the end of the day, though, I think Ohio State pulls away and gets a big win. So, gonna give me the Buckeyes on Saturday night. So there you go, everyone. Week 12 Big Ten predictions. You heard it here first. That being said, I hope everyone enjoys. If you did, please remember to watch, like, subscribe. Don't forget to tell your friends to do the same if they've not done so already. And also don't forget to hit that notification button below so you know when there's a new video on the channel. With that being said, have a good day. Stay safe. Peace out. I'll see you right back here in the Big Ten prediction quick version coming up shortly. And with that being said, I'll see you Saturday night after Ohio State UCLA for the Big Ten prediction recap video. Have a good day. Stay safe and peace out. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now, everyone. Have a good day. Stay safe out there. See ya.